I think we got everybody. Um,
Everybody, we have all the new council members who were available to attend this session.
got it.
We're working on a second session for others to attend, and you're welcome to join that one too if you like.
Fantastic. Well, all right, we're going to get started. We've got 2 hours, which I recognize is a big chunk of time. We probably will use most of the time. We'll just tell you now. But if we end early, I'm sure we'll, we'll be giving you back the gift of time, as said. Just appreciate everybody showing up. I know we'd all, I can say for myself, rather be doing this in person than, via Zoom, but so it goes. I'm gonna share my screen here in like 2 seconds if I can figure that out. And we've got this presentation deck that we're gonna run through just to kind of keep things flowing. And then like at any point, I think if folks want to in the chat make a comment or raise their hand with Melissa and other staff here, we can figure out how to answer questions and just try to keep things as interactive. I'm going to give you a little forewarning, like it may be that as we're going through some of the slides, I may ask or invite at the very least folks to like read some of the information. That way you won't just be hearing my voice. Parasa saw your note about needing to get off at 1:30. Totally understand. We're really, again, happy to have some what's the word? I don't know. Folks who have been on the council for a while participating, because I don't think we did this. Somebody feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure we've had like a formal onboarding or orientation, at least not in recent years. So we wanted to invite some of our current, like longer standing members so that both to help like provide context as needed, but also so that we're all kind of hearing the same information. And of course, staff are here too to be a part of the introductions at the beginning. Well, staff are welcome to stay as long as they want. I think many of them are just going to kind of say hi and then go off. But at least you can hear a little bit about them and their roles and some of that stuff, I think, which is helpful to help build some relationship. And I'll say this quickly too, we are recording this, but while we're recording, it's not a public meeting, right? This is a training, so we're recording just so we can have a record of this and maybe share it as needed with folks in the future. But we're not anticipating that anybody else other than sort of YDC, YDD folks would be a part of the conversation today. But just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. Melissa, anything that I'm missing?
Not that I can think of. I'm happy to share share the presentation if you would like me to do that.
I think I can do it, but I will.
I know you can.
I will ask for help. I'll also mention, and staff know this, and some of the council members are aware of this, like definitely for me personally, going through some family challenges, some health stuff specific to my wife. So there is a chance, who knows, that if I need to step out, I will step out, or if my son, who's actually somewhere around, needs something from me, I will let you know. And I don't know, Cord's is here now. He might go away so that he can do some other work, but we at least on our end, we're prepared that if for some reason I couldn't kind of help facilitate and lead this thing, that we've got backup plans in mind. So just give you that warning that, just juggling some other things, but also excited to be here and spend a little time with y'all. So I'm going to share and we can get going. Oh, Cord's going to stay in the background unless we need to call on you. Thanks, Cord. Can y'all see my screen? And you're seeing a PowerPoint deck, I assume.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome, awesome. Trying to make this. Oh yeah, I'm making. This is gonna work. I think it's gonna work. All right. So, oh, whoa. So we want to do introductions, and again, wanted to make sure staff were here for this part, so that y'all could get to meet them a little bit. Melissa, might be helpful if you could, since I now opened this up in presentation mode, but I think you've got the land acknowledgement. I think I put it in the notes.
Oh, let me see if I can find that.
It is. But one of the questions that we just wanted to do in our introductions here, at the bottom, it'd probably be helpful if we reread the land acknowledgement. Now, again, we could easily, with all of us here, spend a fair amount of time here. So I want to build some connections, some relationship, but I'm going to ask you to try to do your piece in two-ish minutes. So that we can kind of keep things moving. But again, it is important to me that we have used the space, even though virtual, to get to know each other a little bit. And so I came up with these questions that I thought would be a helpful piece. Melissa, can you read the land acknowledgement so that will at least enable people to better answer the last question?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the many tribes and bands who call Oregon their ancestral territory and honor the ongoing relationship between the land, plants, animals, and people indigenous to this place we now call home. We recognize the continued sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribes who have ties to this place and the subsequent bands within those tribes, and thank them for continuing to teach us how we might all be here together.
Thank you. And we've since, I think, December of 2020 started. It was either December or the spring, but I think it was in December that we started reading that land acknowledgement at the beginning of our meetings and the beginning of our committee meetings. And I think we're constantly reflecting on what it means, and also constantly, at least I can speak for myself and say, is just reading, is that enough? Should we be doing something else? Is it increasing awareness? Does it lose its significance by it just kind of becoming like are we checking a box somewhere? So I'm inviting you to just reflect a little bit on those ideas. And I will, how about start us off with my introductions, and then I'll turn it over to someone else and we'll kind of bounce around. You just pick somebody on the screen. Like I said, try to keep it succinct so that we can, spicy and brief is the terms that we use in a lot of our meetings. Oh, Sanji's joining us. So we'll if Melissa needs to give folks like even a 1 or 2 minute, she'll hold up a finger so that in case we need to keep moving. So I was born in Ogden, Utah. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. Lived in Colorado till I was about 18, and then came out to the Northwest for college. The impact that I hope to achieve is, I think, ensuring that our resources are really flowing to the most vulnerable young people and families in our state and in the 9 federally recognized tribes. And I think, we have limited resources and they can go in a lot of different directions, and doing our best to create policy and strategy to ensure that it's meeting the sort of highest need. And that's just really important to me. And I think it's been interesting too, although I guess I'm not on the council, but as a part of the staff, it's been exciting and fun to kind of create a stronger, more focused culture around equity and inclusion. So that's something I hope to achieve at that level. I've been on various local nonprofit boards, from jazz and music organizations to youth serving organizations. but not on any national boards. But just wanted to give folks with that question a chance. If you're on any other state things or things that are relevant, we've got a couple members who are our newer members who are on some interesting national boards that just thought wanted to give them space. So that and the land acknowledgement. I think an acknowledgement of the fact that the land on which we're living and doing our work was stolen and taken from Native communities is important. And I think a recognition of the strong culture, history, civilization, influence, the information that our Native communities have brought to and continue to bring to our work, to our lives, it's not appreciated. So I think the land acknowledgement is really important in that context. All right, mouthful. I don't know if I did in 2 minutes, but I did my best. Rafi, I'm going to turn it to you. How about that?
Great. Well, hello, everyone. Really excited to join you all. Originally, I was born in Flagstaff, Arizona. Lived there until I was about 12, and then moved with my family up to Bainbridge Island, Washington, which is about a 35-minute boat ride from Seattle. What impact do I hope to have? I work in the nonprofit sector right now. I work with a lot of youth in K-12 schools, as well as in our juvenile justice and youth corrections facilities. And I find that's a very interesting mix. A lot of people often work with either education or justice. And to me, these are all the same youth, and they all have a lot of the similar needs. So I feel like I've been downstream, working kind of in response mode. And I have just a real passion for also moving upstream and trying to address things that I think are going to make a larger impact than also the very important immediate one-to-one person-specific work that takes place downstream. I am currently actually on House Bill 2204's advisory committee. It's a restorative justice bill. First time the state of Oregon has funded restorative justice. So really helping to craft the rules for that grant process that is underway. So that's very exciting. And then locally, I have been an active member of our youth development work group, which is part of an initiative, a collective impact initiative called Southern Oregon Regional Success. And I'm sure there's some other things, but those are probably the most intriguing. And for me, I think the land acknowledgement, I think just being brief, like one thing it means to me is just contributing to the visibility and making sure that even in small ways, we're not erasing Native Indigenous people who are very much here today and very active in their communities. Whereas I think there is a tendency for people, or even I guess just personalizing it like myself, to kind of forget that, to kind of just think about the history of the land versus the people that are here today that need to be seen and recognized. And I will pass it to Paul.
All right, well, thank you. I'm Paul Sell. I am part of the YDD staff. I oversee mainly the re-engagement work, as well as pretty heavily involved in all of the youth grant making processes. So you would have seen me talk a lot at the council over the past few months about grants over the time. Brian's laughing because he's probably heard me the most about grants. One of the impacts I hope, where I'm from, I'm actually born and raised in the Willamette Valley. So I live about 10 minutes from my home that I grew up for the most part. So live in the community in which that I've grown up. The impact I hope to have, I worked in K-12 for just under 20 years, and really moving to this role, I was hoping to really expand my opportunity to help support youth that need the support differently than what a K-12 education can serve. Working in alternative ed, I saw that need extensively, and there's a lot of youth out there that just need something slightly different than what the typical may provide. And re-engagement to me was one of my favorite parts of my job prior to moving to the state, and so now I get to work on it a whole lot higher level. Local and national boards, not currently really on any boards. I've been involved in a multitude of different school district work in my former career, ranging from anywhere from the discipline perspective to athletics to the curriculum aspect of that work through those years. The land acknowledgement for the staff on the team, they know that I'm pretty connected just with farming and nursery and growing of pieces. And so when I hear the land acknowledgement, I really appreciate the fact of acknowledging where the land has come from and who represents it and where it is today. And kind of, Rafi, kind of like what you were saying, is acknowledging what impact was prior, but then also with people today is really important to me. Every time I hear it, it actually resonates a little bit different with me. And I kind of appreciate it. It's the same statement we use, but it resonates differently each time. So with that, I will turn it over to Erica.
Thank you, Paul. I'm Erica McAlpin. I'm from Alabama, and I moved to Central Oregon 4 years ago. I live in Bend, where I am I'm the Executive Director of Strategic Diversity Initiatives for OSU Cascades. I'm also the Faculty Senate President-elect for all of OSU. So a lot on my plate right now. With that being said, though, what I hope to achieve from being on the council is, in higher ed, we're always thinking about what impacts children, K through 12 students, especially in terms of barriers to higher education. And so in my work, I work to remove those barriers. And so I felt like joining this council was a way to influence that at a level that I might not be able to in my current position. In regard to other boards, I am on, I am the president-elect for City Club of Central Oregon. I'm the chair-elect for, I'm gonna be leading a lot of things, chair-elect for volunteers in medicine, and we provide medical services to people that do not have healthcare benefits, and volunteers from the medical community help us to provide that service. I'm also on the board of Envision Bend, and statewide, I am also on the Racial Justice Council, the Racial Justice Council's Education Recovery Committee, which is where I met Brian. And I'm also on the Central Oregon Regional Solutions Advisory Committee. In regard to land acknowledgements, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine. She just moved to Oregon from North Carolina. And she said, she asked me why our land acknowledgements read in Oregon before every meeting, right? She works for the city, and so the city does it before every public meeting. And I explained the history of and the tribes that are represented, here in Oregon. And she was like, yeah, but it just becomes words. Like, where's the real action and meaning behind giving honor, to those tribes? And so I would just like to challenge us that while we should continue to acknowledge the tribes that are represented here and the land that was taken from them, we should also think about how we can actively help those communities. I know Warm Springs is not far from where I live in Bend, and there's water problems there. And what can we actively do, instead of just acknowledging their presence, but to make them live full lives as well. So I will kick it to Tanisha.
Thanks. Yeah, Tanasia.
Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm from Portland, Oregon, born and raised. I guess I think that I'm going to be able to provide a new voice, a new perspective here. I'm not currently on any boards, but I was an alumni board member for Rosemary Anderson High School, PYC. And I also want to kind of piggyback on what Erica said, because I felt the same way. It just feels like it's a box we're checking off, and it's like, okay, what more can we do? So I agree completely. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Abe.
Hello, Abraham Magana here with Grant Manager of the East Development Division. Where I'm from, I was born, well, not born, I was born in Portland, but I grew up in the Woodburn area. That's where I grew up. What impact do you hope to achieve? Kind of similar to what's been said before, but really have impact on some of our most vulnerable youth throughout the state of Oregon. I feel pretty lucky in my role, actually, because I get to directly see the reporting from a lot of our organizations that serve youth, and there's some amazing stories out there and some amazing stories of youth and adversity that they're just overcoming. It's amazing. I feel pretty lucky in that sense. Local or national board commissions. Right now, I'm on the Latinx Success Plan Advisory. Sure if it's a board or commission. Currently working with that. And what does a land acknowledgement mean to you? For me, it kind of keeps everything on the forefront and just kind of remembering, I think, you know, for so long, right? It's kind of what it says. It acknowledges the existence, you know, of prior communities, right? And the importance of it, right? It keeps it at the forefront of every meeting. So it's not something that's kind of put to the side or not, again, not acknowledged. Sorry to use that word again, but for me, it's really keeps it at the front. It's always a reminder for me, right? So I really appreciate that. I know it's impacted the way we think about in our meetings, at least in grant manager meetings and stuff of that nature. So it is something that for us is very important. I'll go ahead and pass it to Cord.
All right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cord Bucher. I'm currently the acting chief of staff for YDD. That position was previously Sandy Braden, and I've been filling it, and we're in the process of establishing a successor to that position, policy and partnership director. It's currently in its long slog from HR to the Department of Administrative Services for approval. But as part of our last legislative budget package, we realized that there was a need for refining the purpose of that role. And so I'm really excited to be in it. And, you know, and thinking about the impact that I hope to achieve, I mean, I think particularly in that role, I mean, it's really about, you know, increasing, you know, the YDD and the council's clarity of mission and being a steward of our strategic plan, being effective in our service to youth and their communities, building awareness of what the YDD and the YDC do, and deepening our partnerships with other agencies. And I have been here for 5 years, and I'm really excited by like all that's happened in the time that I've been around, and really thrilled to be able to like just continue that work and seeing how far we have come and how far there is still to go. It's I think a really important piece of work. I didn't say where I'm from. I was born in South Carolina, but I grew up in Louisiana and lived there until I moved to Oregon, where I lived for a long time, but I am currently in Brooklyn, New York. I moved right before COVID, and I guess thanks to COVID, I had the opportunity to continue working for the state. And now I learned yesterday there are state of Oregon employees now currently residing in 43 different states. I guess there are some I might prefer to be in over New York, Oregon definitely among them. But we moved here for my wife's job, and it's you know, sometimes really amazing, but I don't know that this has been like the golden age to be in New York City, but making the best of it. And I'm not currently on any local or national boards, commissions, or groups. Honestly, like I'm a new parent, so I'm just really kind of trying to navigate that and keep my wits about me. But I am pondering, there's a local business development, industrial business development nonprofit here that is looking for board members and was interested in someone who had some workforce policy ideas. So I might explore trying to get involved in something in the community that I now reside in. So we'll see. But time just has a whole new meaning now. And the land acknowledgement, you know, the thing that really kind of resonated with me listening closely this time that it was read was the last line where we thank the tribes for continuing to teach us how we might all be here together. And I just thought, you know, that what does that mean? And what do we need to be learning? And what is the active role that I and we play in learning how to be here together? And how do I turn that into action? And what does that look like? And it was more of a question that arose for me, but I feel like that's something that I might take away from, you know, you encounter something so many times and there are new pieces that you kind of notice. And that's something that I'm wondering is, how do I show that I am learning how to be here together, and what can I do to ensure that that I'm accessing those lessons. So with that, I need to scroll over here and see who is left to go. I will pass it to Robin.
Good afternoon, everyone. So Robin Johnson, where am I from? Born and raised in Oregon. I actually grew up in Lake Oswego, which is a small suburb just outside of Portland. I live in Southeast Portland now. So I've been here pretty much all my life, living in different parts of Oregon, but predominantly here in Portland metro area. The impact I hope to achieve, I think I mentioned this in my last or in my introduction at the last kind of all the full YDD board meeting, is that I have my master's in developmental psychology. I have not worked in any sort of youth services for some years, so I feel like board service is my way to give back and actually kind of activate around one, my passion and my profession around equity and inclusion, and two, to put my degree to some use. So I really appreciate those opportunities. Local and national other boards I'm on. So currently I am on the board for Girl Scouts of Southwest Washington and Oregon. I just joined this last spring, I think was my first official date, starting with them. And then I'm also on the board for and the secretary for a local nonprofit also here in Portland called The Numbers, which the last letter is a Z. And they are a predominantly Black and community of color service radio station. So that's here also, again, Portland metro area. They're currently located out of the Portland Art Museum, but my understanding is they started their origins out in what they call The Numbers, or in more Gresham-y area, southeast, or kind of deep southeast Portland and then into Gresham, but are trying to expand that bandwidth to be fully holistically all of Portland. And then what does the land acknowledgement mean to me? So as someone who identifies as both Black and Indigenous, it's an interesting, I guess, conversation. I think it's important to recognize communities that have been here and are here, and, you know, the future of tribal and sovereign nations. At the same time, even within my own organization, I work for Umpqua Bank, which has a kind of a namesake connection to the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Indians that I don't think we've done, you know, really the fullness of what we could be doing as far as not just a land acknowledgement as far as a statement, but what does real meaningful programming look like as far as reinvestment into communities that have had, you know, land stolen, treaties broken, so forth and so on. So I sit in the complexity of that space who, as a person who also holds identity with Indigenous communities. And yeah, I'm not sure. I also need to scroll through and see who has not yet shared. If anybody wants to chime in and let me know that they haven't shared yet, that would be great.
I can help you with that, Robin. Oh, it looks like Dr. Lewis is raising his hand. Taviti, you want to go?
Dr. Lewis, we'll get to you.
Okay. Hey, hello, everyone. Sorry I was a few minutes late. You can imagine it was leaving a meeting, right? So I am from St. Louis, Missouri. And so I'm a Midwesterner. And I moved here about 20 years ago to work in academia. Willamette, and now I'm at Washington State University. I'm hoping to, what impact I hope to achieve. I'm hoping to continue on the trajectory. I've been on the YDC and working with the Juvenile Justice Division for since I've been a member. So that's been about 3 years, I think. And so I'm hoping to continue to learn more and continue to bring my understanding of education, of larger cultural, critical race theory dynamics to the table, and have an impact that is proactive and not reactive in how we deal with this, this issue of juvenile justice. And, I'm hoping that my ultimate dream would be we do such a great job. I have such a great impact that there's no need for this subcommittee, right? Right. You want to put yourself out of business, right? I'm on a number of sort of academic national boards and stuff like that, educational stuff that I won't sort of go into listing here. But, the one I'm really most proud of is, the work I've been being a part of YDC and juvenile justice has been very gratifying to me. And, it's funny, the land acknowledgement, as I bounced into the meeting, I can't remember who was talking, but someone was saying, hey, our university, every time we have an event, and I'm seeing the trend everywhere, people begin to say, we're on the land of blah, 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 blah. And it is just words. And so to me, it is just people saying words as opposed to, taking those words. So what it means is taking those words and making it something real. And so, I teach often a multicultural literature course, and we deal with critical race theory. And I usually say to people, and this is in relation to this question, understand this is an immigrant country. This is a country of immigrants, and that there are a few, indigenous residents of this space. And if what I just said can be, forced into people's minds, it will change. It can change the way in which everything is dealt with. So to me, I just think it's words often, but I think it's words to use the force, real action behind it. So.
Thank you. This is Melissa again. I'm just going to pop in and hand it over to Molly.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Molly Burns, and I'm a grant manager and policy analyst on the re-engagement team with YDD. I started in January, so relatively new myself. I am born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Practically the month I turned 18, I left Oregon and relocated to Hawaii, where I eventually did my education. I've also lived in the Midwest and actually a couple of countries. I've lived in Nepal and India a little bit. So my work has been in higher education. Since returning to Oregon, I taught ESOL at the community college and ended in adult education. Am I going over my 2 minutes? Where the ESOL students and the GED youth in those programs, what I just saw were the gaps in terms of really connecting the youth to higher education. And so that's the real reason that I'm here, is because since we are looking at creating this statewide re-engagement system and understanding how to strengthen those pathways and connections for youth, that's really where I'm hoping to make a contribution in this work. And the land acknowledgement for me, I think, has meant different things at different times. But it means to me always grounding and centralizing our work on equity. And it's always a reminder that I have so much more to learn as I go through this work. So it's nice to meet everybody. And Melissa, who are we?
Thanks, Molly. Let's hear from Sanji.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanji Moore. I'm the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator. Before I tell you a little bit more about myself, I will say that Diana texted me and stated that she's having some connection issues. So she was initially a part of the group, but will probably may not be rejoining today. So I am Liberian American. I was born in Monrovia, Liberia, West Africa, to a Liberian mother who is now American citizen and Arkansan father. I spent most of my formative and many of my adult years in Arkansas, which I consider home by way of Liberia, of course. Also spent time most summers visiting my mom on the East Coast in Brooklyn and North Jersey. I moved to Oregon 2 years ago, January of 2020, to start this job. Definitely been an adventure, not all positive, but taking it one day at a time, drastic change. So what impact do I hope to achieve? I hope to continue to try to figure out the best way to get in good trouble, to continue to do what I can to disrupt the systems that have Black and Brown youth as the underdog and the repeated underdog, to help them level the playing field so that they can have equal opportunity, equal access, equitable opportunity and access to achieve their full potential. I am on a couple of boards, one still connected to Arkansas. I'm on the board, and COVID has helped a lot. Well, actually two still connected to Arkansas. COVID has helped with allowing me to still participate in those virtually. I'm on the board for sober living homes for men and women who are recovering from alcohol and substance abuse and addiction, and then also very active in leadership in my faith community. And here in Oregon, I've been on, it's a national nonprofit with local affiliates across the country. And I'm on the board for Young Audiences of Oregon and Southwest Washington. And that's an organization that tries to inspire young people to expand their learning and their horizon through arts. So before I moved here, I never experienced the land acknowledgement ever in my professional life or personal life. And so I'm very grateful for one of our tribal sisters who is a stakeholder, colleague, I consider a friend, to say, hey, we were planning an agenda together. And she said, you know, usually at the beginning of the meetings, we do a land acknowledgement. And I said, okay, thank you for, you know, correcting me with that. And she did the first one. And so today I'm also in a concurrent all-day training, and one of the cohorts did a land acknowledgement that was personal to her. And she reminded us of the bureaucracy and the, you know, the audacity of hope that is necessary in order for tribes or bands to be federally recognized. And some of them get denied. Can you imagine? Like, in order to become a federally recognized tribe, they have to go through a tremendous amount of red tape and potentially be denied because it doesn't fit into a paradigm. So many of the sentiments that have been expressed, like how dare we turn it into something that it currently is, and we need to figure out how to reverse that. And as Erica stated, figure out ways to actively be good stewards of the land and provide the resources and tools and stewardship that the Native people need. Thank you. Oh, welcome to all of the new council members. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Sanji. I think I'm the last one, but wave at me if I am incorrect. Oh, I'm so sorry, Parsa. That's right. You were like the first one in the meeting. You go. You have your turn.
Are you sure? I have to go after you. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Parsa Chanrami. I use she, her pronouns. I was born in Portland, but raised in Aloha, which is a suburb outside of Portland. And my background is my parents came from Cambodia to the United States and actually met in Oregon and settled in Oregon, have made their life in Oregon. And I think a lot of their immigrant and refugee experience really shapes my orientation to education. So in addition to serving on the Youth Development Council, I came on to the council around the same time Tabidi started too, and we both serve on the Juvenile Justice Committee. And then in my work outside of the council, I work as the legislative director for the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators. So we represent superintendents, central office administrators, building level leaders. And I feel like I feel really fortunate that the work that I'm doing, not only in my role at COSA, but also on the council, it aligns so much of what I'm passionate about, which is around being able to support our students and youth to realize their full potential. That's been really central for me, and to be able to kind of reflect on my time in the council and also think about, okay, what is it that I'm learning as being a member of the council? How do I use that information to also improve my work on the K-12 side of the system? Because there's a lot that needs to happen, a lot of systemic change and work that needs to be done. And so I feel like my time here has been really impactful at helping us think about policy differently, think about what leadership looks like in Oregon and where do we need to go. And there's a lot of good work that's going to be continuing. And I'm hoping to come back and share some of that around diversifying our leadership in Oregon. And what does that mean for systems? What does that mean for our policy work? What does that mean for our investments in our students and youth? In terms of local and or other boards and commissions, so I mentioned I'm serving on the Juvenile Justice Committee, and I also serve on a lot of different advisory work groups at the department level, just because of the nature of my work. And then outside of my more very specific education work, I also am on the board of Butterfly Boxes, which is an organization that's focused on working with other local and culturally specific community partners on welcoming refugees to Oregon. Because I know from my mom's story, when she came as a refugee, there were very limited resources and supports in helping a family that had basically everything taken away and just starting just from from scratch. So it's an organization that's really near and dear to my heart. And then in my role at COSA, I also staff a lot of boards. So I'm staffing all of our school executive boards, our principal boards, our central office boards. I wish I could serve on more, but I feel like can have the most impact by serving others and supporting them on the different leadership roles. And that's where I see part of my impact as well. For the land acknowledgement, for me, similar to what some of the other staff and members have shared, I feel like whenever I hear it and share it, it lands really differently depending on what I'm experiencing at the time. I think the other component I would highlight is not only is it centering, but it just reinforces the need to do more work. How do we ensure that this isn't just words or words on the page, but how are we putting it into practice? And I think a lot about how our implementation of tribal history, shared history is going. And I also think about how, even though it took some time to even get to standards adoption, the rollout and implementation is going to require a lot of us in terms of ongoing professional development and support for educators, so that we are being culturally responsive. We're centering the work with our students and their lived experiences. And there's just a ton of work to do there. And one last thing I'll name is a lawmaker approached me about a policy that they're interested in allowing schools to do the land acknowledgement instead of the Pledge of Allegiance. And I really like that policy idea. That's me, like, my first reaction was like, that would be an incredible change. I'm not sure if they're planning to run it during the short session or the long session, but I think that's very timely in addition to all of the work that we need to be doing to acknowledge our tribal history and shared history.
Thank you, Parasa. Thank you, everyone else. No, I think really I'm the last one. My name is Melissa Gallardo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the executive support person for YDD and also the administrative support person for the council. I was born in Portland, but raised in Eastern Oregon in La Grande, and came to the Valley in the early 90s and have been here ever since. The impact I hope to achieve by being part of the Youth Development Division is just supporting our amazing staff and council and all of the work that you do. That is a privilege and an honor. I have learned so much, and I just keep getting more excited about the work that you all are doing, and that we're doing as being part of the staff. I'm not on any national boards or commissions. Reading that, I was thinking like, I'm on the parent teacher club at my kid's school. I'm involved in campfire here with my kids. I have 2 sons. So that's like super grassroots maybe. And the land acknowledgement, what does it mean to me? Prior to this, I've been on this team for 1 year, and prior to this I worked at Willamette University, which is where I first encountered the land acknowledgements in meetings, and before, like, I would go to the theater performances there and they would always have it there. And my initial reaction was, oh, this is new, I love it. But just hearing all of you talk about the action that we hope that it can help help encourage is also really exciting to me, and I'd like to be part of that. Prior to this meeting, I most recently heard it, I think, at a meeting that Sanji was organizing, and I really liked that after the land acknowledgement, she just told us all that we were going to take a minute of silence and just think about it, and that really helped me center and realize that, oh, it's not just the beginning of a meeting, like it's not just becoming sort of agenda item number 1 or something like that. Just a lot more thoughtful and personal to have that time to think about it. I think that is it for me. I will note that we had asked the YDD staff, they're invited to attend the whole meeting, but we'd asked that they attend just the first few minutes while we do these introductions. So if they need to leave the meeting, that's why. We had told them that. And Brian, anything else? I think it's back to you.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, it just feels important when we're all in desks, wherever we are, to take the time to build some relationships. So we're about 55 minutes in. We've got a little more than an hour. I know, Parsa, you've got to go around 1:30. We're gonna just keep going through the rest of this presentation, talking through a number of topics. But again, yeah, as Melissa said, if you either want to go video off, or if you need to go, totally understand, totally get it. Appreciate y'all being a part of the space so that folks could get to know you a little bit. All right, we're gonna keep going. See if all right. So yeah, this is the list. We'll do our best. I may talk fast. You're gonna need to either, like I said, raise your hand or wave your hand or do something if I'm going too quickly, because I feel like I'd like to try to get through this, but also want to give folks time, space to ask questions, have some conversation. I'm going to invite others to read information from the slide, just to keep it interactive to the extent that I can. And but we'll move through this. We've got some history, timeline stuff. You can read this list here. You've heard bits and pieces. You've heard parts of this or seen some of this in the updates and communication. So I guess as we move through, this is as much about again, making sure we all see and hear the same thing, but also if there are questions. Oh, I was wanting to ask about, but I wasn't sure what the right time or space was to ask this thing, or I was wondering how did we arrive at this particular thing. This is a great space, I think, in which to do that. And what's something in the past, or is there some context I may need or want? So I will also say we're trying to invite a grantee to be in the room or being a part of this. We were not able to do that. So though it says grantee story, I can tell you now we are not going to have somebody from one of our grants as a part of the meeting, which I think both is unfortunate. Although, actually, as I think about it, I think Rafi's organization has received YDD money in the past. So, so in some ways, we've got enough shared information and experience in the room to highlight that if needed. So I'm gonna keep us moving. Was there anything else or any questions at this point from people about what we're covering and what our purpose is? All right, I'm gonna move on. So quick history here. And because the way that I did this, I'm showing you the presentation, I don't have my full notes here, but I'll just hit this quickly. There's more detail on our website in the history section of the website. You kind of got to go about YDD and you kind of got to dig a little bit. But just as a quick primer, for the first, 8 years or so, a lot of the duties and responsibilities that the council and the staff are charged with were happening in the context of the Oregon Commission on Children and Families. The Oregon OCs or OCCF, the Oregon Commission on Children and Families, was then sort of broken up in Governor Kitzhaber's, I can't remember if that was his first, I think it was his second, but somebody I was around, but I'm now forgetting if it was his first or second. He was governor at 2 different points, but kind of blew up the commission system. One of the reasons for that was a desire to have a more focused system around early childhood development. And so breaking up that system, one of the outcomes among many was then the creation of the Early Learning Division, which is a critical partner for us and for the Oregon Department of Education. But in effect, I think some of the things that needed to happen, okay, so we created this Early Learning Division. Now, what about all these other duties and responsibilities? What are we gonna do with everything else? And so other things needed to be created. One of those was then in the following year, 2012, the governor's office and the state established the Youth Development Council, which is our governing board. As you know, you are all on it. And that council was first established. And then a year later, in order to sort of carry out the duties that were assigned in statute and rule to the council, the Youth Development Division was in a staffing body was created to kind of move that work forward. 2014, we launched our community investment grants. I think as dollars started to sort of, I don't know if they were flowing more our way, but there was like this move and push, I think, to say, okay, how do we distribute the general fund dollars that we're responsible for administering, and real focus on community and community-based work is what happens in the context of our community investment grants. We're going to talk a little later about some of the different grant initiatives and pools of money at a kind of high level. So stay tuned for more about that. And then in 2015, there was clear legislation to sort of talk about the age of the work that the Youth Development Division does. And it was established in statute and clarified to say, hey, let's go as low as 6 and all the way up to 24, so that those young adults and that consistency with brain science and where just brain development is for young people, ensuring that we were not just stopping at 18, that we know that that brains continue to develop up until like 25, right? So I think that was established more clearly in statute. And then more recently, in the last legislative session, one of the big wins for the Youth Development Council and the division was that the Student Success Act, sorry for the acronym, but the SSA, or Student Success Act, tasked the Youth Development Division with the creation of a statewide youth re-engagement system. This work that Paul and Molly and others on our team are responsible for. We'll show an image later. In the last biennium, it was $4 million in grants that we did. This biennium, it's $8+ million in grants. Some of those going for direct service work, and others, it's more sort of collaboration and coordination between entities around really doing deep work to connect young people to high school completion, GED, pathways to workforce, and doing so in a way where we're really valuing the support systems that are necessary to get young people and frankly young adults to where they need to be, right? Not just saying, hey, here's a job and here's a wage, which is really important, but in order for a young person to maybe stay in that position or maybe just get on a pathway to come back as an 18-year or 19-year-old to get a GED, how do I do transportation? How do I maybe it's a homeless or houseless individual, how do I get connected so that I have the supports necessary that then I can achieve that specific educational outcome? So that's a bit about re-engagement. And then one of the things is, just as a piece of background, that the corporate activities tax, or the CAT, is the source of the dollars for our re-engagement work. We refer to as the Oregon Youth Re-engagement Grant Fund. So it's our grant initiative. Those are resources from the monies passed in the last legislature around the corporate activities tax. So I'm going to stop there. That's the quick and dirty timeline, just so you kind of have a sense of the history. It's the early work of the Oregon Commission on Children and Families is I think fascinating, and because I would say that transition, that handoff, was not always perfect. Maybe not all handoffs are. We still inherit some things that in technical things that we need to fix, and language that we need to fix that we inherit from some of the breakup of the Commission on Children and Families. Any questions there or comments? Longer time serving members, anything y'all want to add?
I think you covered it, Brian.
Awesome, thanks, Sparsa. All right, so just wanted to have you grounded in that. We're going to talk a little, we'll be fast here about the expectations, responsibilities. Just wanted to be clear with folks here. I was frankly looking at some of this information over the last few days and late last week, and there was some redundancy in expectations and responsibilities. I tried to correct and fix that, but know that I'm thinking of expectations as kind of overall bigger picture and wanting to be clear about things, and then the responsibilities a little bit more the technical and or by sort of statute. So excuse the, like, I'm a person, I know like too many words on a page. I'm not going to read all of this to you. You can read it to yourself. I mean, first and foremost, advancing our shared vision, mission, and history is really critical to those on the who we invite to serve on the council. So I want to, as an expectation for folks to know that the kinds of people we are most interested in serving on the council bring this kind of lived experience and a professional background at a high level, committing to our mission, vision, values, upholding and employing equity, justice, and anti-racist lens. Those are some key pieces of our values and beliefs and our strategic plan. Keeping up with trends and issues, understanding the difference and responsibility that I have as a director to facilitate operations, and then you as council members to really be focused on the strategy and the overarching strategic pieces, making decisions in the best interest of the state and our federally recognized tribes, maintaining confidentially on internal matters when needed, participating on one or more fully in when you are doing committee and work group work, valuing each other, being a representative in the spaces you operate. Those are our expectations. Any questions? I'm going to move to responsibilities. This again, my thinking was this is a little more technical, like, okay, what do I need to make sure I do? For your term, and you're limited to 2 of those terms. I know that things come up for folks. I'm not trying to give you like a pass if you need to for some reason bow out early, but I'm just acknowledging that sometimes things come up and we'll figure it out. Serve on at least one committee. I know that I think Melissa was starting to communicate with council members as we were looking at our new committee configuration. We definitely have people on like more than one, which we both appreciate and want, but know that it's going to put some responsibility and demands on your shoulders. So happy to keep that conversation going, but know at least serving on one is critical. Approving our policy, procedures, processes, and not just approving, but obviously having robust conversation, but you do have that as a kind of critical in your role is to be that serve at that level where you're approving policy and process, contributing to the development of those policies and processes needed in our plans, ensuring that we comply with legal and statutory requirements. You can read most of these. I'll just point you at the second to last bullet. The Youth Development Council is sorry again for the acronym, the SAG, the State Advisory Group, which is actually a federal designation because we also administer federal funds from the Department of Justice and the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We are required to have a state advisory group. We've determined that the Youth Development Council can be that state advisory group, but then there are certain things that group must shoulder and have its responsibilities around the four core requirements of the JJDPA, and that's the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act. And so those are things that we are administering. I'm not saying that I'll need to be the technical experts in any of this, but know that your role as a council has this juvenile justice piece. Our Juvenile Justice Committee is it's probably the most knowledgeable and focused on many of these matters, but again, the overall council is the designated state advisory group. And then one of the pieces that I'll call out that's actually from the state advisory group mandate is that there's representation of youth. So this 20% minimum is a state advisory group piece, but I just made this a little bit more broadly that I think a critical responsibility of the council is to help ensure that our council is representative of the young people that we serve and the communities and the families we serve. So try to capture this kind of full range of the kind of populations that our work touches. I probably missed some here and there, but that it be an inclusive and diverse and representative body is critical. Any questions about responsibilities? All right. Again, I'm going to go fast here. Vision, mission, values, beliefs. You've seen these in meetings and know, I think that our vision, mission, values, and beliefs have been the vision. This set of things actually was recently kind of refined and updated as a part of our strategic planning process. So we're excited to make sure folks lay their hands. Does somebody want to read the vision and maybe somebody else the mission? Then I can move on.
Sure, I'll take the vision because it's short.
There you go. Thank you, Erica.
Sure. All of Oregon's youth have the opportunity to thrive and achieve their full potential.
Thank you.
And I'll take the mission. Youth Development Oregon aligns systems and investments in communities to ensure equitable and effective services for youth ages 6 through 24. Throughout Oregon and tribal nations, we support educational and career success, disrupt youth crime and violence, and affirm youth strengths and safety.
Yeah, took a while for us to get to that language and tweaks and refinements, but and you'll notice we've started to just use this Youth Development Oregon rather than the Youth Development Division and the Youth Development Council, just because it was like more words and more acronyms if we said YDD, YDC, and kind of together we're Youth Development Oregon. And included Oregon because though we our investments and many of and a critical partner are the 9 federally recognized tribes, we are a state agency. So that's why Oregon is in there. Going to move us forward just in the interest of time. Values and beliefs. This looks a little, I don't know, some of the letters look a little funny on my screen. I don't know why. We did some combining here. This is a kind of a condensed version. We have actually a separate list of longer belief statements, but just in the interest of time, we kind of culled the keywords around equitable access, equal opportunity, youth-centered approaches and results, inclusion, innovation, and anti-racism. Those I think sort of rise as the key words around some of the longer statements. But again, this was all approved and considered as a part of our strategic planning, and I'm excited to share it with you here. And our job is to make these things real, right? Day to day and month to month, year to year. So just that we have them articulated, I think putting them into action is critical. Any questions there? So our strategic plan. My sense was, and I think Robin may have said this in the last meeting, maybe others have thought about this. I think some folks haven't had a chance to kind of dive in a bit on the strategic plan. There are frankly just a few slides here, but happy to have some conversation or answer questions. And also we can send you the longer full document. Know that we're working on some brand and identity work. So we wanted to apply some, I don't know, for those who've seen the kind of orange and purple look, we're kind of, those are bright and fun, but we're moving to a little bit, some different colors, and also wanting to be using this kind of Youth Development Oregon name in different ways. So long story short, though we have the document, we haven't applied some of our latest and greatest graphic design to it. So we can send you the full undesigned Word version, and you can read it, and as you cozy up on the couch with your cup of tea, or cup of something else, I don't know, milk. But just the quick overview. Cord, to his credit, shared this at the last at our last council meeting. So again, I don't feel like I need to read all of this to you, but this represents kind of an overview. It's got the vision, the mission, it's got the values up in the right-hand corner. And then along the left-hand column, you've got our goals and some definitions. We have 3 overarching goals: community capacity and justice, youth voice and resilience, systems alignment and transformation. I know that there's kind of like this, like 2 things going on at the same time. You've got, capacity and justice, our ability to build relationships both internally and externally, but also drive for a more just and equity-driven current, present, and future. But holding space for the need to grow capacity, but also to drive and reach for justice. Youth voice and resilience, knowing that we want to increase the number of young people who are on our council and involved, and tell the stories of young people, and also honor, value, support the real resilience that young people have and can be built through the programs and services and supports that we provide. The systems alignment and transformation, again, kind of a dual, 2 sides of maybe the same coin. I mean, we have a charge statutorily to align and partner and work collaboratively with other agencies. In fact, I think it's often work that is missed, like too many state agencies work in silos. But while we're doing that, and while we're aware that we need to align and try to get on the same page, systems also require transformation, and that transformational approach, hey, instead of just tweaking and improving, maybe we need to start over. So we want to hold space for that. I'm not saying we have it all figured out, but the strategic plan very clearly calls out, and the council and our staff, we're all on board around ideas around driving systems change, driving deeper accountability, doing work at the community and level, doing work at the policy level to shift things, along the lines of what Parsa, you mentioned, doing things differently, right? So the strategies are listed here in the middle. I think in the interest of time, it's not going to benefit for me to like go through all of them. But then we've also listed all the initiatives that we're currently working on, things that we're doing in very short form. Like this is like the bulleted version. But are there questions or comments? I would love to hear things. I got a couple other slides. I'm not going to read to you, but just want to show you that there's a little bit more of some of the definition stuff here. Some of that was on that earlier page, and then a little bit more detail around our strategies and actions. And then this note at the bottom that, we're sharing progress and next steps and things we're doing at council meetings. And then as we get our executive committee together, we'll also, I think, be driving more at that committee to ensure that things are reported and moving at the executive committee level as we pull that together. So strategic plan, what else do people want to know? Comments, questions? Would it be helpful if, I see some comments in the chat, which I haven't been following. Oh, good. Melissa, you put the link to our website. That's good. You can find like the more like narrative written history piece there. So if you want to dive more deeply there, and other good information. Would it be helpful if we send people the written, like the Word version? It probably will be a PDF of the plan, and you can drive it. What have been some of the more challenging lifts, says Robin? Let me think. Well, I will say I think it was a challenging lift and Parsa is here. I don't know, staff are here, just to get this thing, get it done. Like when I came, we'd already been working at the strategic plan, if I'm not mistaken, for like a year and a half or 2 years. So just getting the plan completed, we committed in the late summer, early fall, like let's stop talking and let's start doing. So I think that was hard. I would say generally, in answer to that question, Robin, I think that, and Tabidi and others are here in the room, so feel free to jump in. I think two things. I think clarity for council members on how they can advocate and advocate either for our budget or advocate for a policy idea that seems really important and interesting. I think the role of council members in the systems transformation, structural change policy work has been challenging. I mean, it's one thing to show up to our meetings and vote on stuff and like, woo, but how can council members be more active? I think has been a challenge, and I'm not saying we figured it out, but I think in the plan, we're clear about we want to do more of that work. So like there's a clarity of vision. I think then with a policy and research and committee, I think we can share the current policy ideas and gather more, and so that there's a venue for those conversations. And I think also in that committee work, I think we can better organize and stay ahead of, hey, we can use your help on advocacy in this way, or hey, this, staying ahead, right? Like not being, oh, this is tomorrow, I need you to do it, but trying to proactively stay ahead of the curve, so to speak. We won't always be able to. I don't know. That's my sense. Parsa, I think I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to add again, in addition to you saying like staying ahead, we wanted it to be forward thinking and have actionable steps. And what was really cool about the retreat that we did as we were gathering feedback on the strategic plan, we all had to do that virtually too. So that was like a challenge in itself. But the way that we structured our time to give folks an opportunity to basically look at the strategic plan in different chunks and say, okay, here's what I'm seeing as us needing to actually put more teeth behind the work. So it's not just words on the page. It's not just a big, bold vision, but we actually have some plans in place to ensure that we're working towards that vision together. And it was really exciting to just hear, as our membership of the council grows, I think all of the different perspectives really helped contribute to where can we continue to leverage what strengths we have as a council, and put that into practice, so that when we reflect on our work 10, 20 years from now, we can see, how we're measuring our progress in terms of serving our youth, and improving our system for our youth.
Great, thanks, Parsa. Robin, I hope that is helpful, helps answer the question. Other comments or questions? I wonder, Melissa, again, we can share the Word, it's like, or the document. It might be a Google Doc, I can't remember. We can share that at post meeting with folks. There's like an executive summary version, and then and I can't remember, Melissa, if it's already on our website or not, probably from a past meeting potentially. So if it's directing people to that, where they can download those PDFs, that may work too. But we are, as I said, it's just taken us a little bit of time to kind of we haven't posted, like, we don't have an area on our website that's like new YDD strategic plan, just because we're trying to get some of the graphic stuff, and that's taken a little bit of time. Again, in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward. It's 1:25, which means we got 35 minutes. I know, Parsa, you've got to roll. in about 5 minutes. Oops. The committees, just wanted to high level, right? Introduce, I mean, not introduce. I think you all, in our last YDC meeting, we had some time to cover this. And if I'm not mistaken, in one of the updates I sent before our last committee, or sorry, full council meeting, I sent you a PowerPoint with some of this information. So I don't think it's new, but just so that we're hearing the same information, I'm going to hit this quickly. Wanted to just remind people that we had these committees, Juvenile Justice Committee, which has been mentioned a couple of times by Speedy and Parasa, a youth committee that both of those are pretty active, a workforce and re-engagement committee that was pretty active. We had an administration and rules committee, which kind of was the place where policy conversations sometimes happened. It was pretty ad hoc, not very active when I came, and some of our council members who've like termed off were a little bit more active with that. So just FYI, executive committee, which is basically the chairs of each committee, that seemed pretty ad hoc too. I don't know if it was very actively meeting before I came on, but we've had at least 2 meetings and hope to have like a meeting of the executive committee more regularly. So in the last council meeting, we landed, I think, I wasn't looking to take a vote, but I thought there was really pretty unanimous support with a new set of, well, some continuing committees, but also a couple of new ones. So sort of restructured around an active executive committee, a juvenile justice committee and youth committee staying, and an equity and disparity committee, then also a policy rules and research committee. That's a lot, I will admit. The policy rules and research, it's a lot of words. But I think we're going to give it a shot and see how things work. But those were things I shared at the last council meeting. I've got slides that kind of describe what those committees are focused on. Again, I will go over them quickly. I think most of you have seen them before, so I would not wanting to take a ton of time. But at this point, like, are there questions that before I move on?
How often do committees meet?
Well, how about that? Look at that. Wait, is that on this page? Committee procedures. In short, Erica, quarterly.
Okay.
Now, I noted, I came up with this. I didn't have this slide at our council meeting. Just like, what is the infrastructure, or just, I don't know what to call this. What does it kind of look like? Like, each committee has a chair. There's YDD personnel assigned to staff the committee. I'd like each committee to have a clearly articulated purpose. Bye, Pressa. She's gone. Determine their meeting schedule. Typically, Erica, to your question, they meet quarterly. Though our juvenile justice committee, because there was some specific needs, actually met in the sort of spring, early summer on a monthly basis, because there was some specific work that committee was doing that they said, you know what, we need to meet more often. So I've written determined meeting schedule at a committee level, either based on need but more generally speaking, it's quarterly. And then the ability for committees also to organize work groups, keeping in mind that we've been trying to pay attention to the rules around like public meetings. I think as council members, y'all can talk and we can have smaller groups meet. As long as you're not making decisions, we actually don't need to publicly notice those meetings. We had some confusion about that in the recent past, just because the rules, I think, are themselves a little confusing. But this is just a way of saying, like, there may be smaller subsets that meet for particular reasons. That could mean, the meeting in between the meeting kind of thing. But I think that as committees go forward, that I just want them to know that that's a possibility. Erica, is that helpful?
Yes, I was curious because earlier you said in the responsibilities, it was to serve on at least one committee. Mm-hmm. And it was like, at least, as though we would have time to do more than one. And so I wanted to see how often they met.
Yes, well, we did that survey. Melissa put that together. Council members responded, and as Melissa, I kind of went through it, and I think she sent out information about this to the council here earlier this morning, right? It kind of looked like in order to get each of those committees to have a representative group of people, and it looked like we're probably going to need to have folks on 2.
Okay.
Now, there's a pretty healthy, we're going to grow the number of council members. We have I think it's at least 1, likely 2, and based on the way that how we sort of spread people out, we recognize that sometimes, things are going to come up and not everybody can be there. But I think actually, Melissa, we ended up with a healthy number of folks on those committees that we felt like they would, it's not just like 2 people, which doesn't make for much of a committee.
Right.
So we feel good about at least where we were able to land.
Okay, thank you.
This is the quick description of the executive committee. Again, in the interest of time, I'm not gonna read this to you because it's 1:30. I shared this at the last council meeting. As you might, executive, somebody tell me to slow down. The Juvenile Justice Committee, which has come up a couple of times. Again, one of our more active committees that focus on youth rights and juvenile justice, I think is critical. These will, I think, begin to make up what I'm asking each committee to have that clearly defined purpose statement. I'd like committees to have, these are bullets, but I think there's some work to be done among the committees just to have something that they feel that describes their work more specifically. So that I'll tell Erica and Rafi and Robin and Taviti, all of you, like, there aren't written down purpose statements, frankly. I think it would be helpful if we had them. We can put them on the website. We can do some of, or if it's a paragraph, it's 2 or 3 sentences, that's fine too. But that's a to-do item. That was also something that came out of our strategic planning and the retreat we did. Like, sometimes when you're new, you're like, what does this committee do? And I'm telling you, this is what I think is the main focus, but I think we can have a more formalized, if you will, purpose. I'm going to move through youth committee, just again, some bulleted top line things that youth committee is focused on. We talked about the last council meeting, how other members of the council, not just young people, young at the federal level is under 28, but we invite other council members. We want the leadership and the majority of those folks to be young people, but other folks who have an interest in being a part of those conversations are other council members, that is, are welcome. And the other thing I'll note, just as a quick note, is that other volunteers can be on our committees. Like, so we can have, I might note, Melissa might help me remember to note that on that earlier kind of maybe procedural slide. It is okay to have volunteers on committees who aren't on the council. And I'd like us to think about that and consider that more, because I think we can maybe we can get more perspectives to the table. It can be a little bit of a kind of a, for lack of a better word, training ground for council members, like, oh, I'm on this committee for several months or a year. Oh yeah, I'd like to now become a full council member for 4 years. So again, there's some cool development opportunity there. And again, perspective. Now, if you're a committee member, you be eligible for like getting reimbursed for travel and food, and now that the state is actually looking to compensate boards, commissions, and council members through a per diem, a volunteer committee member wouldn't, I think, be eligible for that. So we'll just have to find ways to balance. This equity disparity committee, new, like, this is a new piece. I've got some ideas that they can focus on. The NPC is a research contractor that actually looks at a lot of our juvenile justice efforts, and they produced a report last spring that call out some really important recommendations, which I asked them. I said, hey, you give us all this data analysis, well, give me some recommendations on what you think we should be doing. And so, I can have, I want this committee to look closely at that information. This new policy and research, and I left the rules out just because it makes it too long. But the Cord, as once we get this policy and partnerships roll off the ground that he referenced earlier, we can bring our policy ideas and sort of and develop a clearer policy agenda. I think this will be the space where more active policy and advocacy work can happen. So I'm excited about that. And then just for note, these are sort of ad hoc committees and work groups that have that I just didn't want to lose sight of. Like, we had a strategic planning committee that worked for nearly 2 years. So we can right now, I think now with a approved strategic plan, I think that work can be reported on at the executive committee level, but we could, a year or two from now, when it's time for a refresh on the strategic plan, we'll probably want a committee to focus on it. The Re-engagement and Workforce Committee, that work has been will be integrated with the policy and research, but we could have a work group or a subgroup working on like workforce policy issues if that felt important. The Rules and Administrative Committee, again, I see those duties folding into both the Policy and Research Committee and also, like you see this, the rules, when we have legislation, there is often a need then to develop rules around legislation and bills. So I think the policy and research folks can take on that piece, but there's also administrative stuff like thinking about internal matters with recruitment for new council members and thinking about some of the internal YDC stuff that Melissa, frankly, is charged with administering, but having a body to run that by, we'll bring that to the executive committee. And then I said others, question mark, we may have new ideas may come up for groups or needs may come up. So happy to entertain those as they come. All right. Any questions there? Just checking the time. It's 1:40. We got 20 minutes. I really appreciate your sticking with us. Just wanted to outline, I think this is just a few slides, and we'll give you this PowerPoint. So if you're like wanting to know, okay, what is this? Who does what? Like, what does the team look like? This is our team in traditional org chart fashion. Now, I will just say I value collaboration and am try not to be hierarchical unless there's a specific situation that requires it or needs it. But this is clearly presented in a very hierarchical kind of fashion. So just keep that in mind. The governor does technically appoint me. You've got the council as alongside sort of advising and governing. The ODE director, I don't report to that person, but I work closely with ODE. In fact, serve on the ODE executive team and attend many of their meetings. And then again, I'm not trying to leave anybody out, but you can kind of see how the rest of the structure works. This policy and legislative director is a new role that we're creating that Cord referred to. You haven't met all of these folks, but those who are on the phone today, ultimately Cord will become that policy and legislative director. Melissa is our administrative executive sports specialist. Help me here, youth re-engagement now below. Some of this, actually, we're shifting some of these structural things, but nonetheless, the youth and re-engagement role is Paul. The gang prevention position is Abe. And then underneath the juvenile crime prevention manager, who wasn't able to be here today, but you've got 3 roles, one of whom is Sanji, who was on today's call. And then at the bottom, under the youth re-engagement role, you've got 3 other roles. One of those people is Molly, who was on the phone or on the call today. I'm sorry if that's like confusing or hard to follow, but this is actually at least as an org chart, you can get a sense of how many of us there are, and a little bit about where people fit. Any questions? Moving on. Oh, here's pictures of us. This is kind of an older photo. There's Melissa, there's Cord. Sandy was our chief of staff. Cord is currently acting chief of staff, but will be moving into a newly created role. So we've actually reclassified, changed. Technically there won't be a chief of staff, but there's Sandy. She's our retired chief of staff. Jared works in re-engagement. Abe, who you met today, gang prevention and violence prevention grant making, and also does a lot of kind of project management, helping to update our website. Anya is the juvenile justice prevention manager, so she oversees several staff, including Sanji. I think that looks like me. Bill is I'm trying to figure. He was on the previous chat. Does a lot of data related work and oversight. There's Lindsay. Lindsay is supervised by Anya. She's actually moving into a new role around compliance monitoring and looking at facilities that where youth sometimes are brought by law enforcement. So we have a specific responsibility. Remember that I referred to this earlier as this, given that we have federal dollars, we have some responsibility to oversee facilities to ensure they're compliant with certain federal laws. Lindsay's moving into a role in compliance work. There's Paul, re-engagement manager. Oh, he manages and supervises Jared and Molly, who's not pictured. Ryan is now left YDD into a new exciting role and providing technical assistance, but Lindsay is taking on a lot of his responsibilities. And there's Sanji in the right corner, who reports also to Anya and is focused on racial and ethnic disparities.
And this was before Tanasia joined our team because she took on the role that Lindsay Schoonover had as administrator.
Exactly. I see Tanasia's. Yeah, so we'll get a new Zoom photo. We just didn't get one taken that has all of us. All right, moving on. This, I think it's probably, hopefully we can spend some of the remaining time on this. Just wanted to give you kind of the big picture, right? You may be thinking about like, how much money? Like, what does the budget look like? What are the buckets? So on the left, you have the last biennium, where we had, just a little over $28 million in funds. This is the breakdown based on the sources of dollars. I wouldn't necessarily get yourself lost in the sources. Happy to explain them to you, but just thinking about, we were at about 28 million in the last biennium. We're at nearly 35 million in this biennium, 21-23. And that's, I think we did the math at about a 25% increase. Part of that was because we got literally an additional $4 million. A big chunk of that was $4 million in additional dollars to do our re-engagement work. Whereas in the last biennium, we had, in 2019-21, we had 4 million. In 21-23, we have 8 million. So that's the additional 4 million. But just to break this down, you can kind of hopefully see my arrow. The blue chunk represents general fund, state general fund. So general fund dollars coming to YDD to do our work. The kind of maroonish, reddish, raspberry this is dollars, if I'm not mistaken, that actually flow to us. And Cord, you might correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking this is money that comes to us from another department, from the department DHS.
Yep,
I think this is. Say again?
That's correct. It's the DHS money there.
So DHS, Oregon Department of Human Services, has just over $6 million that they actually get from the federal government to do kind of prevention and intervention work, and they pass it along to us, and we grant it to community-based organizations around the state through our grant making. So it's actually federally, it originates, and its origins are with the Social Service Block Grant, SSBG, which is a source of money at the federal level, and they pass it along to us. And then the other couple sources, in orange, you've got the corporate activities tax. This is the re-engagement, primarily the re-engagement money. Cord, why it's $9.2 million. I'm not sure. Maybe that includes the 8.3 in grant making, and then maybe some additional money on top of that for staffing.
I believe that's what it is the staff and admin is included there.
Yeah, is included. Thank you. And then the federal funds are dollars for a lot of our juvenile justice work, right? The Department of Justice dollars are in here from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. Court, are there other federal funds that are in there that are worth noting? And some of, I'll say this real quickly, the juvenile justice dollars sort of, we can use them over a 3-year period, if I'm not mistaken. So those dollars, this is the 1.1 million roughly represents not only the money from the 2021 budget, but also dollars from 2020 and probably 2019 and maybe even 2018. So it's a pool of money that actually is a little bit bigger because it includes dollars from past years. So
yeah, I have to go back and look at that chart because we actually had a pretty large increase in our federal fund spending authority for this coming biennium because we were bringing a lot of funds forward. Like I think it's about a $700,000 increase.
Okay, so maybe that number is a little higher.
Yeah, or they adjusted the old number for some reason. I actually I don't know.
No worries. So just know we've got these federal funds which we administer and also give out as grants. So here's kind of our grant and aid, which is basically our grant making funding pots. You've got on the left, you've got the current, so now things have moved. This is on the left, the 21-23, and on the right, just for comparison's sake, is what we had in the last biennium, 19-21. I don't want y'all to get too lost in the weeds here, but these dollars in the final column, we've given you some of the sources: general fund, other funds, corporate. I noted this really the 6 million. This is the money from DHS. And so we actually pool that together with some general fund money and then make our community investments at roughly 13 million. You've got also the community investment dollars around gang prevention intervention, roughly $800,000. By statute, this is a separate pool of money, so that's why we've showed it to you this way. And then we actually have community schools. There's some dollars that we give, small grants of like $20,000 to about 10 schools, and that's $100,000. We are separating it out just because we kind of pass that money along to those 10 schools. There's not a real competitive process. We've funded these schools for a number of years and feel really good about it. But again, for 20 grand, we don't want to make them jump through a lot of hoops. And then we have our juvenile crime prevention. This again is a combination of general fund dollars. So we get about 66 million plus dollars that we pass along to counties and tribes. And then we've got 1.2 million in federal funds, which we're also administering. So for a combination, a combined total of 7.6 million. I'm not going to do all the comparisons, but you see at the bottom line here in just grant money. This is not our administrative, like the cost to pay our staff. This is just the money that we essentially administer and give out. We're at, so of our whatever 34 million, 30 million of it is actually money that we just are giving back and putting out into the community. There's roughly 4 million in other, over a 2-year period to operate the division. and, you know, cover travel and other stuff. So that's our budget. I don't know if folks have had a chance to see the YDD budget in the past, but we wanted to make sure you all saw it. And I'll say this real quickly. I mean, unlike a nonprofit board, if you know, I've served on nonprofit boards and also, you know, have been a past executive director where as a, you know, the board has this fiduciary responsibility, you know, to raise money and to ensure that the dollars are being spent appropriately. You're not asked to fundraise. Let's be clear about that. And the fiduciary responsibility, I think, is more about is ensuring that we have a clear and transparent process for how money is going out the door. But, you know, through the governor, the operational side of that responsibility is handled by me, and we've got good checks and balances with the Oregon Department of Education, and they're both their procurement people, their accounting people. So long and short is you're not fiscal managers, but I'm excited to just share with you the bigger picture dollars so that you are kind of aware of what the funding looks like. And I think as we do policy advocacy and kind of lean into that, it's going to be important for us to see, you know, what sort of dollar amounts we are currently administering. Okay, we got 8 minutes left. One of the big things that we do is have an RFA, request for application. This is how we give money out. So I just wanted to outline the process and steps for our request for applications. Just again, it's kind of detailed, it's 10 steps, but wanted to make sure folks were aware of how this RFA process works. The council has approved this process, and that's your job, right? We need to tell you what the process is, we get your feedback, tweak and improve it. Each biennium, I think we find ways that we can improve it. But just so you know, this is kind of how it works. We have an application process. We try to give as much time. We've gotten feedback about like not making it too short. So this time around, we started a little bit late in the spring, which meant that we had we wanted to give folks time. So now we're just getting to awards. We feel good about that, but giving people time to apply is really important. We have an initial review that happens among procurement and also our staff to ensure that applicants are meeting minimum eligibility and minimum requirements. We have individual evaluators who are volunteers who review applications, and then we put them into teams. Those evaluators are from a range of different sectors, as detailed here. Each application is reviewed at least by 3 different independent reviewers. And then we again bring those together with a staff person facilitating that panel. Then we organize these tabulation meetings to kind of look at where all the scores are and put them all in a spreadsheet. Then we do a score finalization and award determination. Again, that's happening at an internal level. We've just gotten to the point of sharing the notice of intent to, well, we did the notice of intent to award for our re-engagement grants at the end of last week. And then literally just today did the notice of intent to award for our community investment grants. And so just to remind you, if you're like, wait, what's he talking about again? Youth re-engagement, this top line, 8 million. We're not giving out necessarily all 8 million, but we're going to start giving away, awarding some of those dollars, and we started that last week. Community investments, I'll tell you, they kind of fall into a few different buckets here. Community investments, and these are different initiatives: Promise, Solutions, and Workforce, the gang prevention dollars. These 2 categories are what we are starting to award now. So just wanted to bring your attention to that. Back to this point that we were making about the land acknowledgement, just as one, I think, important note, we had a multiplier for a score multiplier for applications from our 9 federally recognized tribes. So part of putting that into action is saying, we know that it's critical to make investments in our tribal communities. So we added a score multiplier to ensure that when we got those applications, that they would be, the score would be multiplied to better ensure that we would fund those applications. And we Cord can help me with the details here, but we definitely are funding a number of tribal applications, and having that multiplier ensured that their scores were, and they submitted great applications. You know, we're really pleased, but wanted to, that's one mechanism we use to be consistent and to be proactive about how we're using our dollars. We also did a piece where the top scoring application from different regions across the state were also awarded. We didn't give them a multiplier, but we said, when we split the state into 11 regions, Paul talked about this at the last YDC meeting, so I don't want to bore people, but we wanted to get better geographic representation in serving youth from rural communities. And again, that's by rural communities, I'm just going to say it, that's not a euphemism for, you know, poor white kids. Yes, there are some poor white kids in that population, but we know there are Latino, Native American, and other communities of color in these rural communities, and want to ensure that resources are getting to those places. Declined applications have a period of about 7 days, which is why we won't give you and make public a full list of all grantees, both awarded and unawarded, until next week on the community investment side, because we want the process of what is it called, Cord?
There's a protest period.
Protest period. Thank you.
Yeah, they have 7 days to submit a protest, meaning that they feel there's a reason they should have been awarded. That goes into procurement, and we'll review that.
Yeah, so that's that. Grant agreements distributed in early October, and then negotiation begins after that. I'm spending a little time here because I just wanted you all to understand, and as newer members, the process. This has again been approved and vetted by the council, but just wanted you to understand that, because I think this is a place where you may receive questions. I'm not expecting you to know all of this information, but wanted you to begin to wrap your heads around kind of what it looks like. And you can send questions to us, right? Send interested parties. There are going to be some folks who are, this is a little bit more about how the process of approval worked in this past, at the last couple of meetings in March and June. So that's what these bullets are designed, just so you're clear about the council's approval in its role. But there can be some disappointed entities out there because it was really competitive. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read all these bullets to you because we have 2 minutes left. What else did we have? Here's a summary. Will tell you about just how competitive things were in the community investment grants. I'll direct you to this last bullet, right? We have 14 million, but we had 31 million in requests. In re-engagement, we actually have 8 million, but we had, again, we're going to be 2 different grants. We had 6.9 million in requests. So we were able to award most, if not all, of the re-engagement. And again, it's split into 2 pots. It's a re-engagement opportunity grant. And we purposely will have some money left over to do some more collaborative grant making. But again, there are going to be some disappointed folks on the community investment side, just because, again, lots of applications and the top scorers essentially are the winners in each of the categories. Any questions about grants? I threw this in just so you could see what those regions were. There's a last note here, which I'm going to leave to Melissa, but I'm going to take a pause. Any questions about what you've heard so far? Has this been helpful? Rafi's shaking her head. We probably lost a couple people, but I know, Robin, you're there too. Not hearing anything. Melissa, do you want to end us in the last minute?
There is an endless supply of materials and resources for so much more of this. I've been here a year and I still have lots of questions and learn things every day. So you use the YDD staff as your primary resource, I guess. Wanted to remind you of the resources that the governor sent, that the governor's office sent with your appointment email, that includes the Oregon State Board handbook, the ethics overview, and the government ethics law guide. We are putting together we're planning right now to take advantage of the Oregon, oh my goodness, what's it called? OGEC. The Ethics Commission provides
Yeah.
training for staff and council. So we are scheduling one of those for all of us to do together. And this was very much an overview. I think in the past orientations were maybe a full day in person. So Brian and I were just giving you the basics. I have a policy and procedure manual, which has all kinds of details and numbers and things in it. If you have any further questions, that would be my resource that I would refer to. And one other thing, I just went to a training this week on the fact that all of the council members, if you're not already in the Workday system, then you will be in the Workday system. And I think that's how, is it stipends, or Brian, you said per diems will be provided through that system. And that will also be the place where you would go to update any personal information if you move or you get a new job or something like that. That's it. That's all I can think of for right now. Thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah. Looks like Erica had to run. Robin saying extremely helpful. Appreciate that. Yeah, lots. This is just, we'll get you this PowerPoint. Melissa referred to, I think at the top bullet there was a bullet around a handbook, which we'll send you, which is going to be a PDF of more stuff that I don't know if you want to read it. We encourage you to, but we wanted to do this in this way for those learners who kind of want to hear it and see it and have some context. We're not like expecting you to become the expert in like dog ear your handbook, but you are more than welcome to. All right, I know we're a couple minutes over, so just want to be respectful of your time. Really appreciate Rafi, you and Robin for sticking it out. Staff, appreciate y'all being here and introducing yourselves. One of these days we'll get to meet in person.
Thank you all. This has really been really enlightening. So thank you for pulling this all together. I feel much more settled into my role and my participation.
Thank you all. Thanks, Robin.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks, Court.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah.